Hello and welcome to Football Daily, where today we're looking at another 10 clubs which have disappeared from the face of the earth. 10. Atlético Aviación. Real Madrid may often be seen as the symbol of Francoism in Spain, but rivals Atletico have their own shady history with dictatorship. In 1939, La Liga was set to resume after a 3-year suspension due to the civil war raging in the country. But the supply of Spanish men had been depleted, with 8 of Atleti's players killed in the war, while their stadium had been destroyed during the siege of the capital city. A solution presented itself when Aviación Nacional, a team made up of military personnel from the Air Force, tried to gain access to the league. They had played charity matches since 1937 but needed a license to play professionally, with the Spanish Football Federation refusing to give them permission to participate in the 1939-40 season. So Atleti and Aviación merged, taking the spot of Real Oviedo, and they went on to win back-to-back titles, equaling the tally of Real at that point and passing Barcelona, who had just one. The union would last until 1947, when deteriorating results saw Atletico go it alone again. 2 years later, legendary coach Elenio Herrera took over, and the Rojiblancos won another pair of championships. As the 50s wore on, Real began to show their dominance in Europe, and Franco shifted his favour to the Bernabeu and a new icon of Spanish superiority. 9. Tehran 11. The Iranian national team was formed for the first time in 1941, but the nation first put out an 11 in 1926, when they were invited to visit Azerbaijan for a series of matches between the two countries. The 3 most prominent clubs in the capital pooled their talent, and a squad made up of players from Tehran Club, Tufan Club and Armenian Sports Club travelled to Baku, where they lost 3 and drew 1 of their games. 3 years later, it was time to return the favour, and Iran had prepared for the occasion. A previously barren field had been planted with grass specifically for the matches, and politicians were in attendance. Unfortunately, Tehran 11 lost 4-0, then 4-1, and finally 11-0, effectively ending public interest in football until the mid-1930s. Crown Prince Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who had been a keen player in Switzerland as a boy, though his schoolmasters said he was too timid to be a great footballer, returned to the nation in 1936 and encouraged the growth of the sport. Hossein Sadakiani, a player in the humiliated team of 1926 and a former star at Fenerbahce, took over the newly founded national side in 1941, winning their first fixture 1-0 against British India. By 2005, they ranked 15th in the world. 8. Cork Celtic. Though hardly as successful as their Glaswegian counterparts, Cork Celtic won the League of Ireland in 1974, and the following season reached the second round of the European Cup, where they were subsequently smashed 7-1 by an Armenian team. At the time, just 2 of the 7 football clubs founded in Cork remained in operation, and Celtic had a local rivalry with Cork Hibernians. That title win brought the club international attention, and they were able to attract marquee players for the first time. England's World Cup hero Geoff Hurst joined the side at the age of 34, scoring 3 goals in 3 appearances, while a 29-year-old George Best, having burned all his bridges at Man United, arrived to give the club some stardust. Celtic handed him £1,000 a game, but nonetheless he quickly lost interest in Cork and relocated to Los Angeles with the Aztecs. 8 of Best's 17 clubs would go out of business after he played for them, unsurprising given his financial demands, and by 1979, just 5 seasons after their most famous triumph, Celtic closed for business. 7. Start. During the Nazi occupation of Ukraine during the Second World War, the German forces decided to use football as a propaganda tool. Existing Ukrainian teams had been disbanded, but the regime allowed new sides to be created, and a man called Trusevich, who had played in goal for Dinamo before the invasion, set up his own team with his co-workers from a bakery, mostly former Dinamo footballers. Start played at first against teams from the German railways and artillery, and after 7 games had a record of 7 wins, having scored more than 5 goals a match. The Germans decided to ditch the artillery and bring in the big guns, drafting in several professional players from the air defence units, only to see their dream team humbled 5-1 and 5-3. Sadly, that wasn't the end of the story. 9 of the Start players would subsequently be arrested by the Nazis, who claimed they were NKVD, the Soviet secret police. 5 of the team were eventually murdered by the SS, and another 3 were sent to concentration camps. Start had become a symbol of resistance, and they paid the ultimate price. 6. Rushden and Diamonds. When you get kicked out of the conference, you know that something has gone seriously wrong. Rushden and Diamonds were founded in 1992 and won promotion twice in their first 4 seasons to reach the conference, eventually making it to the Football League and the heady heights of the English third tier, after just a decade as a club. But off the pitch things were trickier. After having just 2 managers in their first 12 years, R&D went on to have 7 in the following 5 seasons, and their attendance dwindled from around 6,000 to just 3,000, an average bettered by 16 of the conference's 24 clubs. Around 2004, several legends left the club, including Paul Underwood and Billy Turley, who had over 550 appearances for Diamonds between them. By 2011, the club could no longer pay player salaries, and they were banned from making new signings after failing to pay £750,000 in taxes. Diamonds went into administration, and the fans started a new version of the team, the imaginatively named AFC Rushden and Diamonds, who now play in the Southern League Division 1 East, the 8th tier. 5. Uniwersytetia Craiova. As the name suggests, Craiova was founded by university students and academics from Craiova, a large city in the south of Romania, in 1948. They won 4 titles and remain the 6th most successful side in the history of Romanian football, and were one of the first from the country to excel on the continental stage. In 1982, after winning back-to-back domestic titles, Craiova entered the European Cup. They had been in the competition twice before, both times exiting in the first round, but this time was different. First they beat Olympiacos, then Danish outfit KB, to set up a quarter-final with the mighty Bayern Munich. Against an array of superstars including Rummenigge and Paul Breitner, Craiova fought to a 1-1 draw in Munich, but lost 2-0 at home to the team who would go on to come second to Aston Villa. The next season they reached the semi-finals of the UEFA Cup, this time losing to Benfica, but that was the end of European glory for Craiova. In 1991, they won a league and cup double, but strangely, Uniwersytetia decided to put an end to their football activities, and a new club was created to take over their license. That ended in a dispute over who owned the old team's trophies, and Uniwersytetia began life again in 2013, returning to international football with a 3-0 loss to AC Milan in the Europa League in 2017. 4. The Eritrean national team. To lose 1 squad is a misfortune, to lose 2 looks like carelessness, but that's exactly what the East African nation of Eritrea has done. The country, whose highest FIFA ranking is 121st back in 2007, sent a squad to Uganda in 2012 to compete in the CACAFA Cup. But when it was time for the flight home, 17 of the 22-man squad didn't arrive, and nor did the team doctor. They were ultimately allowed to stay by the Ugandan government, and that's hardly surprising. The government of President Isaias Afwerki has imprisoned over 10,000 political opponents over the last 25 years, and Eritrea is ranked as having the least free press in the world. So 3 years later, the same thing happened again. This time Eritrea had travelled to Botswana for a World Cup qualifier when 10 team members applied for political asylum. In all, there have been at least 7 instances of Eritrean footballers defecting to other African nations, and at least 70 players have now found homes abroad. As a result, the nation has only entered qualifying for 1 of the last 5 Africa Cups of Nations and have never appeared at a major tournament. Meanwhile, Afwerki's government has come up with a novel way of keeping their players, demanding they pay a $6,700 deposit before leaving the country, which is returned if they come back. 3. Chivas USA. Meaning goats, Chivas was founded in California as an American offshoot of 12-time Mexican champions Guadalajara, who are nicknamed the Goats. Jorge Vergara, a film producer who also owns Guadalajara, wanted to take advantage of California's large Latin American population and hired Bob Bradley to coach the fledgling side. Unfortunately, Chivas never got their hands on any silverware, with the biggest stars to wear their shirt Brad Guzan and Nigel Reo-Coker. Attendance dwindled from a peak of 25,000 in the 2009 playoffs to 7,000 by 2014, and MLS itself purchased the club from Vergara with the intention of selling on to new owners. In the end, no new buyers could be found, and instead Chivas ceased operations in 2014 after 10 years in the division. A new franchise, Los Angeles FC, is set to begin life in the city in 2018, with Carlos Vela leading the line as a designated player. And with things coming full circle, LAFC's first manager will be Bob Bradley. Let's hope they bring LA the glory that Chivas couldn't. 2. KSK Beveren. Though two-time Belgian title winners, KSK Beveren are probably less famous than the best player they ever produced, Yaya Touré. Touré was in the academy of ASEC Mimosas in the Ivory Coast, but was given the chance to move to Europe when Jean-Marc Guiou, who had managed ASEC as well as the Ivorian national team, bought shares in Beveren, intending to gain an edge by bringing over the best West African talent. Touré moved to Belgium at 18, and within 2 years of his arrival, there were 14 Ivorians at the club. This influx of young stars and a friendship between Guiou and Arsène Wenger, who had his first coaching role under Guiou at Cannes, saw Arsenal adopt Beveren as a feeder club. The relationship brought Emmanuel Eboué to North London, and in return Arsenal loaned Beveren €1.5 million to pay off their debts. However, money was pouring out of the club, and after a relegation in 2007, Beveren could no longer afford their professional license to play. The entire first-team squad quit and joined up with Red Star Vaasland to form Vaasland Beveren, who now play in the Belgian top flight. 1. Racing Paris. Paris has always been a goldmine of football talent. At the 2014 World Cup, 25 Paris-born players featured for nations other than France. And so it's a strange quirk of football fortune that the city has just one major team. But until the 1970s, that team was not Paris Saint-Germain. Racing Club de France was founded in 1882 and won their first regional title in 1907. When Ligue 1 was formed in the 30s, they were made members immediately and lifted a national championship in 1936. Racing's star defender at the time was Raoul Diagne, who became the first black player to appear for the French national team. They also won a hatful of national cups, but financial difficulties damaged the squad, and by the time PSG was founded in 1970, Racing had been relegated twice. A businessman called Jean-Luc Lagardère tried to resuscitate the moribund side in the 80s, merging them with fellow capital minnows Paris FC and bringing in Porto's European Cup-winning coach Arthur Georges, but it was too late. Lagardère lost 300 million francs, another 2 buyouts failed, and bankruptcy followed twice. No longer the club they were, Racing have been renamed 9 times in the last 30 years and have dropped as far as the French 6th tier, while their last silverware came in 1949. So thanks for watching to the end of our video. Make sure you like it, of course, and subscribe to the channel beneath. If you want to watch another video, click right here.